time we are going to, from Agile Studio, are going to present the topic user story prioritization technique. Uh, Prince is going to present this concept wherein there are various techniques used for user story prioritization. So before Prince start, I'll just give a very brief overview why actually we need this. You know, when whole software development industry shift its methodology of development from waterfall to Scrum, the idea behind was that it needs to adopt the development process in such a way wherein the evolving needs of the customer during the development gets the priority and gets accommodated in the software development so that the final product or the software uh, once the project completes meets the actual demand and needs of the customer, which are evolved when the project got conceptualized, also evolved during the phase of the development. So that is where in Scrum the very beautiful concept called introspection, uh, which is called sprint review, where we inspect and adapt the product. So the main idea is to see that how the product is coming up, see, review all the features which are developed and which all can be developed in order to meet the changing requirements of the customer. And that's where this story prioritization comes into picture, wherein product owner guides the whole uh, Scrum team in order to ensure that whatever the main objective, the critical objectives, goals of the product or the software application is, that meets basically the demands, the new needs of the customer. So that is how this is really very important in order to ensure that we are delivering a product or the software which actually meets the current requirement of the end user. So let's understand the different. Over to you, Prince.
Sure, sure. Thank you. Thank you for the overview. So yes, here in this knowledge session, like we are just going to study about the user story prioritization technique, which we can say the backlog or the broader backlog prioritization technique. So before we get started, there are knowledge etiquette. So punctuality, join the session 5 minutes prior to the session start time. We start on time and conclude on time. The feedback, so make sure to submit the constructive feedback for all sessions as it is very helpful for the presenter. The silent mode, so keep your mobile devices in silent mode. Feel free to move out of session in case you need to attend an urgent call. Feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions to ask me, but avoid after that. Avoid the disturbance, avoid unwanted chit chat during the sessions. Yeah, so the agenda for this meeting would be to like I'll be just starting with the like what is your story, because if we say that the product backlog, then it contains the user story, apex features, everything. So just wanted to give a touch base on the user story because I know that some of the team developers ask that why we need to create the user story. So I will just touch base on the user story, the importance of the prioritization, that why we know to do the prioritization, and in that I'll be going through that the product backlog, the sprint backlog, the sprint goal or the iteration goal, the milestones, the business relevance. When we come to the prioritization, we focus on the business as well. That what should be item we should be picking up or the prioritizing first in a product, which gives us the business value. The types of prioritization. So I'll be going through four of the high agile prioritization techniques, which is rated very high. The Moscow, the Kano, the Rise, and WSJ, which is also called the weighted sort job first. And in the end, I will try to conclude everything. Yeah, so we'll be starting with like the what is user story and from where this discovery of the user story has come up. If I'll talk about, so discovery will trigger a chain reaction, which will now lead to the development part, the testing part, the deployment part, and finally providing a set of features which we want into our product. In the software development and in the product management, is a story is an informal or the natural language description of one or the more features of a software system. It is also a small unit of a work in the agile framework. It's an end goal, not a feature, okay, expressed from the software user's perspective. If I talk about the perspective of the user story is to articulate how a piece of work will be delivered a particular value back to the customer. Hit note that just customers don't have to be external end users. It can be the internal customer or maybe anyone from your team. Here we are working with the cross-functional team, multi team. So maybe the requirement can come from one of your internal team as well. And if you see the diagram which are in the slide, the narrative flow. So we can also divide the user stories in the multiple subtasks, in that technical task, detailed task, and we have to prioritize line. The non-essential user story we can put in the backlog, maybe in the product backlog, which we don't want in a sprint to be worked on. It's also a requirement, as I mentioned, which defines work is required by the user of the functionality. If I talk about like how to write, then we are writing the user stories in our product. Like we follow that, okay, as the user story, we want to do this so that we get some business value. That's how we used to write the user stories. So for a given product, so we may have end users, so we may develop an application within an organization and use that application for the organizations. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, the end users in this case could be the external, the internal, or anyone from their team as well. If I talk about the importance of the prioritizations, so yeah, ordering the product backlog items in the product backlog is not simply about arranging them in a list. It's about making the informed decisions. Even like there are some differences between the ordering and the prioritization of the backlog. So anyone wants to let me know like what's the difference between the ordering and the prioritization of the backlog? Okay, let me tell you the difference between what exactly the ordering and the prioritization of the backlog. So Scrum guide defines the product backlog as an ordered list of everything that might be needed in the product. But after some time, the Scrum Guide removed the prioritization in favor of ordering as a term used for organizing the product backlog. If we go and see that, so according to the Scrum Guide, the priority is just one component of ordering the product backlog. So now, when I first heard this change, I was a bit skeptical. But for me, the prioritization means stacking the product backlog items in order of the business value. If I talk about like what could be the more important than the business value, if we work in a product, we say that okay, we have to pick this item which gives them more business value, but it turned out to be missing small but extremely important detail called dependency. If I give you an example, okay, you might choose to work on a task that requires the collaboration with the vendor to align with vendor's schedule, or you might add a small item to the backlog that the team feels it can complete rather than a large item that is unlikely to be done in a sprint. I think so. Business value is very important when we keep the prioritization of the product backlog or the sprint backlog. Helps in the sprint planning with the story selection as the product backlog is already prioritized, better visibility to pull the items during the iteration if the team has the bandwidth. So if our product backlog is already prioritized, we will be having the visibility to pull the items during the iterations or the sprint. Okay, if the team has the bandwidth, we can also effectively manage the risk management due to pre-known issues during the grooming of the backlog. We can also improve the supervision of the dependency. So once we do the backlog refinement, we can say that, okay, these are the items which are were dependent. We try to mitigate that before pulling into that story in the sprint. So once we prioritize the backlog, we can have a vision of, okay, these are the items which is dependent on the other team or the other stakeholders where we need to take some approval. While doing the prioritization of the backlog, we can improve on that as well. Uh, while ordering the product backlog, it will give us the return of the investment as the requirement follows mainly the value based delivery. If I talk about that, what value, how to consider during the product backlog prioritization, how we can do that, what are the factors or facts which we should be keeping in mind while doing the product backlog prioritization. So there are some of the points which we should be keeping in mind while doing the product backlog. One of our the customer satisfaction. So we should be booking those items where we can say that okay, by developing this user story or this feature, there would be a customer satisfaction. We should also be thinking in mind that that feature is going to give us any business value or not. How complex that feature is, how we can minimize the risk of that feature. Sometimes we say that okay, if we don't have this feature in our product, what will be of our loss? What could be the disadvantages of not having those features in our product? By having that feature, what are the opportunity we can gain? How much time it will take to develop? The cost to the develop and the implement? Is there any dependencies, or the number of users or the frequency of users is are going to use that product? So we should be keeping all these facts in our mind, or the factors, when we are not trying to prioritize the product backlog. If I talk about deeply about the product backlog, so it's a requirement of the entire product, correct, that will satisfy the end user need. So every product has the long list of the user story or the features. uh, and in the picture you can say that okay, this is the product backlog which is having a big list of user stories, correct, or it might be the epic, it can contain the features, etc. And from the product backlog, we just prioritize that okay, this is the items which we should be picking up, then below that this is the item, then this is the item, this is the item, and we can prioritize according to that. And I think as I mentioned as well, while prioritizing the product backlog, we should be keeping some of the points in our mind, that the business value, the cost, the risk, the customer satisfaction, the complexity, and the opportunity we can gain. So product owner own the product backlog. If I talk about that, who owns the product backlog, then it means that the product owner owns the product backlog. This term used in agile project to refer the requirements, okay, and the requirements will be captured in the product backlog in the form of the user stories, the features, and the epic. Uh, Product backlog ordered based on the business priority. It can contain the technical task as well. If I move to the sprint backlog, like what's the sprint backlog? So it's the subset of the product backlog. Okay, the sprint backlog is owned by the development team to deliver the value each of the sprint. Where in the sprint backlog, it is also called the iteration backlog, which contains the sprint goal. Okay, and if I talk about the sprint goal, so I have seen like a lot of teams used to write the sprint goal as a task. Okay, they pick couple of tasks or 3 4 tasks, and they say okay, this is our sprint goal for this sprint. But I don't prefer that should be the sprint goal. Your sprint goal should be like a feature or a milestone which we are achieving that. Just writing some of the tasks, like gathering 4 5 tasks and saying that okay, this is our sprint goal, this is which we are going to achieve. That is something not we should be following. If the sprint backlog should be a milestone or something which you are adding into our product. Sprint backlog also contains the technical task related to the user stories. We can identify as part of an sprint backlog, as I mentioned, that we can identify at the part of the sprint planning. And if I go to the product backlog, so it also keeps exploring, correct, what we want to add into a product. At some time we may want to have that feature, and we keep adding into our product backlog. And in the sprint backlog, when we get some bandwidth, we can start adding those items from the product backlog to the sprint backlog according to the prioritization which we have done, and then we can ask the team members to start working on those, and in the end we can deliver those stories to the product. If I talk about the business value, so I think business value is very essential. The product owner should be responsible for estimating the business value for each feature. That might be the BJ also includes. They can also do the analysis that which if we add these features to the product, how much value these are going to give to the organizations. And we talk about the examples of the some value criteria, that the revenue potentials, the demand from the customers, the competitor risk, that okay, if any other vendor or any other company is having this feature, we are not having this feature, then we should be adding that, because in the market there are the demand for all of these features. We should be also aligned to the strategy, the core competency, and like what does drive value for your product. You should be adding that to the product, but also keeping that mind the business value, what are the features is going to give you. There is no doubt that about that, but logically ordering the backlog items is crucial to ensure the product backlog and the future evolution. If I talk about and give you an example, so just take example of the house construction. Okay, take house construction as an analogy. The roof of the house could be the highest priority or the value. It's that the feature of the house that is visible to the naked eye, correct? But without a roof, we can't imagine a house. But can we get a roof on the house before making the foundation? The answer would be no. That what does not meet the eye something sometimes is more important than what does. The feature called roof is dependent on the infrastructure. That it for us to be able to launch a product with minimum value functionality, we need to do both prioritize and order the product backlog items. The product backlogs helps us to achieve our goal of achieving the maximum value in the shortest possible time. Let's move to the types of the prioritization. So there are a lot of types of the prioritization, maybe 100 or terms of the prioritizations technique available in the market, which the different teams users. But I'll be going through some four prioritization technique in this session. The first one would be the Moscow, which is again a very important method in where we uses this. It's a popular prioritization technique for the managing the requirements. This method is used to keep the stakeholders understands initiatives in a specific release. It's a acronym that stands for four categories. Okay, and if you say that it should be having the category item to must have, should have, could have, and won't have based on their necessity for the project completions. Must haves are vital for the project. Okay, and before moving like deep down into the Moscow, I do want to talk about the history and the purpose behind this technique. So software development expert Paul Dicek invented the Moscow method back when he was working at the Oracle. He initially designed the method to represent the initiatives within the releases. Today, it's interpreted in several different ways. Before we start to run the Moscow analysis, there are a few things that needs to be happen. Correct. Uh, we should be aligning our key stakeholders with the product team and the objective and the prioritization factors. Then we all need to agree on which initiatives to prioritize, and finally, we will want to decide and resource allocation for each category. And if I go deep into that, like the must have, what is must have, and how to do that. So it's a non-negotiable needs for the product project or a release. Correct. If we are building something, these must have should be in a product. We can't ignore that. It's a non-negotiable thing. The must have should be in a project. If you are unsure that whether an item belongs in this category, ask yourself three questions. Okay, if you are thinking that hey, this item can be in our must have or not, just ask three questions. The first one will be that what will happen if this initiative is not included in this specific release. This is something which we should be asking while doing the prioritization when we are going with the Moscow method, whether this should be uh, adding to our future or not. And by keeping these three questions, we will be able to answer whether this is our must have or should have or could have or could have. The second point would be, is there a more simple way to accomplish this feature? And the third one will the product work without this item? So if you ask all these three questions, you will be definitely able to get your must have from a product. If I talk about the should have, then it's also important to the project or release, but they are not the vital. I give you an example, this could be the performance improvement, minor or the minor bug fixes or new functionality. let's just think about like that they are not necessary for the product to function, but they do add the significant value, correct? They are not the critical features of a project, and these are the high priority items that are not time sensitive as the must haves, correct? And if I talk about the could have, so it's not necessary to the core function of the product. They have a much smaller impact if they are left out. So if we are when we are doing the prioritization and we are following that, okay, this is the item which are lying down in the could have, then we can ignore that. They are not having the they are having very small impact if they are left out. So one of the great things about the Moscow prioritization method is the will not have the category. And if I were to the will not have the category, then this allows you to manage the expectations of what will be and will be not included within the specific release. And this is one of the very important technique, correct? While doing the prioritizations, uh, we use a lot of the Moscow prioritization technique to prioritize our product backlog. And if I talk about the benefits of the Moscow prioritization, then it provides the clear prioritization, and we can say directly and it's easy to understand, correct? We once we are the must have, and we know that okay, this is the must have and this should be included into the our product. So we will have a clear picture and we will able to understand that well, these are the items which should be included into our product. It also makes us to decision making process simplify, okay? By having this we can uh, think or take a decision on any of the features or the items. This also enhance the communication between the stakeholders and to be on the same page. It also improves the stakeholder management when we follow the Moscow prioritization technique. This also identify and agree on the Moscow by having the all the stakeholders best suited for. So yeah, I think all the best suited will be the requirements when we are getting the requirements and we want to prioritize that. So it will be suiting for the requirements. Why? So it's a simplex complex requirement by categorizing them based on the level of the necessity in the product. When we can use this, so when there is a need for quick prioritization under strict deadlines or in projects with a rigid scope, at that time we can use this Moscow prioritization technique. If I talk about the strength, then yeah, as I mentioned, that it provides a simple and easy to understand method of the prioritization that facilitates the stakeholder negotiations and the consensus. If I talk about the weakness, then yeah, it tends to simplify complex issues and does not consider the relative importance within the categories, uh, which led to overlooking significant details. Also, one main thing which we should be keeping in mind while using the Moscow method is that we should not be putting more items into the must have and thinking that okay, this is also our must have feature, this is also should be must have feature, this is also should be have must have feature. So we have to very careful when we are deciding the must have feature. Same when we are saying that okay, would have feature, this is the feature which we don't want. We have to very careful that okay, we have to very make sure that these are the features which we don't want to include in the product or into a release at that time when we are doing the prioritization. Keeping too much task into the must have and keeping too much task in the would have can lead to a business loss as well. So we have to very make sure that when we are using this Moscow method while doing the prioritization of the product backlog. uh till here, any questions related to the Moscow method? Okay, no. So moving to the Cano method, it is again one of the important prioritization technique. Before we go, I would like to share something with you, and which by which we can understand the Cano method very easily. So there are a couple of factors, correct? While using the Cano method, there are some of the things which we should be keeping in mind, or the factors. If I go, then you will say that okay, there are something called the must be, there is something called the reverse, there is something called the one dimension, which is also the linear, which is there is something called the attractive, correct? Let me explain you this diagram, how we can, by using this diagram we say that okay, this is how the our Cano analysis method works. Here we can see that here is the satisfaction. This is called the user satisfaction. Here is the dissatisfaction. So if any feature is not there, then the customer would be dissatisfied. Here we can say that, okay, this is the fulfillment if a feature is fulfilled or fully implemented. And here we can say that, okay, this is all the feature which is not implemented at all. Moving with the one dimensional feature. Okay, so if this is a something and it's for falling under this category, then the customer will be one dimensional and they will feel like, okay, we are satisfied by having this feature. Giving you example, the performance of a site, correct? If a site takes too much longer time to load a page, then we will be not satisfied, and at that time it will come under this quadrant. But if it takes like only 5 seconds or 2 seconds or minimum milliseconds to load a page, then the customer will be very satisfied, correct? Here in this, they would be like linear. Okay, if it's there, if it lead in 5 seconds, okay, we can fine. But if it takes like 20 seconds, 30 seconds to load a page, then the customer would be not satisfied. These are all the must be features which a product should have, or must have. I should say must have. So these are the features in a product must have. Giving an example, when we go to hotel, restaurant, correct, or hotel, we don't say we would expect that, okay, our room is clean, correct? By having the must features in a product, the customer will not feel so satisfied. Okay, I got this feature because that is expected, correct? If we go in a hotel, we would be expecting that our room is clean and neat. So not having this feature, by saying that the room is not clean in a hotel where we are going, then we would be falling dissatisfied. But if it's clean, then we will be not too much excited or too satisfied. We would say, okay, that's fine, that is something which we are expecting, that the hotel room would be neat and clean. If I talk about the attractive one, so this makes the customer like, wow, okay, they are not attractive to your product. Okay, but giving you an example, long two back, maybe 10 years, 20 years back, the hotel rooms or the hotels does not provide you the facility of the Wi-Fi, correct? But after that, once the hotel have started providing to the Wi-Fi connections and everything to their customers, now at that time, the customers feel wow, satisfied that, okay, now we are getting the Wi-Fi connection as well, where we are taking the hotel. So those are the features can make the customers more satisfied, but it's not necessary that every hotel is giving you the Wi-Fi connection. But if we feel too satisfied, okay, to that this is the hotel which is giving you the Wi-Fi connection as well. Same go with the indifferent. These are all the features which the customer do not care. Uh, Whether it's in a product, if it's not in a product, the customer do not care. So there would be some of the features which really the customer do not care about, that whether it's in the product, whether it's not in the product. So the customer completely ignore that. If I talk about the reversal thing, this is and this is very, this should not be in a product, correct? I'm giving a live example right now. Some of our developers is facing a lot of problems with their Intune, correct, which are making them like ignoring, or that okay, every time we install the Intune, sometimes not making the compliant, and after that we are not able to access some of the unnecessary items. So a product should not having that much feature where the dissatisfactions of the customer is coming out of from them. So we have to make sure too many things in a product also dissatisfy the customers. So we have to just fear with the reversal part of the Kano analysis, that we should be keeping in mind that, okay, we should be avoiding all those features by which we can think the customer would be the dissatisfied, maybe having too many login features, or two, like after two factors coming up, there is another two factors coming up, we having too many two-factor authentication to logging in a product can also make the customer dissatisfied. So this is all about the Kano analysis. It's best suited for the features or the user stories. Why? If I talk about why, so it evaluates the features based on the customer satisfactions and the differentiations, making it useful for the user-centric work items. When to use, so when we want to prioritize features that could greatly impact the customer satisfaction or set your product apart from the competition. If I talk about the strength, so yeah, it helps identifies the delighters and must-have features to improve product value and the customer satisfaction. And if I talk about the weakness, then yeah, it requires delete the customer's insights and subjective classification, where we can say that not all features can be easily classified between all those four quadrants. It's a little bit difficult because it mainly focuses on the customer satisfaction. For the BA and the PO would be a little bit tough to get that. Okay, what are the features in a product should have merged? What are the features can make the customer delighters? What are the features can make the customer one liner or the linear, where those are the things must should be there, but it should not take okay that 30-second or the 50-second to load a page. So while using the Kano, we have to keep all these things in mind. And the PO and the business roles comes very much, all the stakeholders roles comes into this picture, that they have to think what users needs more into a product. If I talk about like what is RISE method, so it's again one of the important feature, or sorry, the prioritization technique, which the teams uses. Today we will also learn about this user prioritization. The RISE prioritization technique, where the RISE stands for reach, impact, confidence, and effort. This method was developed by the Intercom, and they also use it internally. It's really simple but powerful and helps to remove the personal opinions while doing the prioritization of the backlog. This technique is great for the established product to work with the RISE prioritizations. Uh, we will always need to be able to qualify or to quantify how many customers does this change impact. Of course, RISE method is not only for the prioritization product feedback, but it also helps in the prioritization of the marketing, content writing, sales activities, and similar kinds of things. If we want to use the RISE method, how we can use that, then for the reach, we should be asking a question that how many customers does this impact this quarter? Your quarter can be like 2 months quarter, 3 months quarter, or maybe the 4 months quarter. So we should be asking the question that how many customers does this impact in this quarter? So that stands for the reach. And if we talk about the impact, that how does this contribute to our goal? So this is one of our questions that should be asking while we are figuring out the impact. Third would be the confidence, that how confident are we to deliver this assigned product or to feature into a product. The fourth one will be coming the effort. We should be asking that, okay, how much effort will take to develop that feature? And this is something which we have to figure it out so that we can make the RISE score. And by making that, we can say that, okay, these are the things, these are the features we should be working on and prioritizing according to that. If I talk about that, there are some formulas of RISE, how to calculate the RISE score. So yeah, this is the formula of calculating the RISE score. So if we are saying that, okay, reach into impact into confidence divided by effort, and then we will be getting the RISE score. And on the basis of that, we can measure that, okay, these are the items having the larger score or the higher score. We will prioritize that first before the lesser one. Giving an example that if we are saying that, okay, in a product or a feature we should be building, or which is the onboarding video, creating the onboarding video for any user. So if we are giving some random numbers, okay, the reach can be 2, the impact can be 2, the confidence will be 2, and the effort to creating that video will be very less because we are already doing that. So there will be not much effort in creating the onboarding video. So we can see that the score is 3, correct? Same if in a product we want to have some the navigation page, okay, we are saying that, okay, it will reach to the like 2 customers or maybe the 5 customers, the impact would be the 3. Some would like, someone would not like. We are confident that, okay, the 3 users which will be using them, they will be very satisfied, and the effort to have that navigation page created, it will like 2. Then we can say the score is 5, correct? If I want to add a filter, let's say that, okay, the impact would be 3, we are confident that everyone will be using, let's give it 8, the effort will be like 5. Then we can say that, okay, we are getting a RISE score of 3.2. And if we want to say that, okay, which is the product we should be picking up for, the higher the score, that item will be get picked for. So if I talk about here, the navigation page having the score of 5, so we will be picking the navigation page and working on first. Then after that, we'll be picking up adding the filter into a product, and after that, we will pick the onboarding video to create the onboarding video. So this is how we should be using the RICE method to prioritize the product backlog. If I talk about the last one, which is also one of the important prioritization technique, which is the weighted shortest job first. This approach prioritize items by considering their size and the cost of delay, with the object of minimizing its best suitor for the features or the epics user stories. And why we should be considering then the consider the cost of delay and the size of work unit, enabling the effective sequences and the prioritization. When to use ideal when there are many items to prioritize and their dependencies, and the cost of delay need to be considered. If I talk about the strength of the WSJF, it offers a rational and the quantitative approach that minimizes the time waste by focusing on job site and the urgency. If I talk about the weakness, then it requires the detailed understanding of each item's time requirement, and the cost associated with its delay can be complex to different. If to calculate the weight shortage job first, there is a formula for that one as well. It's kind of a similar related to how we are calculating the rice score as well. So if you talk about the cost of delay, what is the cost of delay? So it's the sum of the business of the user business value, the kind criticality, the opportunity enablement as well. Let me explain first that what is users value, user business value. So when in a product, we should be focusing that okay, how a feature or a feature can give us the business value to us. Okay, this criteria determines the economic value of the features in a product. For example, is the feature capable of bringing the more money for the business, or can it prevent the business from losing the money? The time criticality, this is something we should be also focusing on, that how much time it is going to take when we are releasing a feature, the time is critical or not. The opportunity enablement, this orientation helps to highlight those items that not bring revenue immediately but will benefit in the long term. For example, in the product backlog, there could be some items that may help you eliminate technical or legal risk and save your money later on. Others may open doors for other further improvements that will significantly increase the number of the potential customers. So by adding these the business value, the time criticality, and the risk reduction, we get the cost of delay of that feature. And to calculate the weighted solve job first, we should be dividing that with the estimated size, that how much size of that feature is. So let's say that there are a couple of feature A, feature B, feature C, feature D. I have already given some business value, the time criticality, and the opportunity enablement. Again, we will be picking up those items which is having the higher WSGF score. So if feature is having the higher WSGF score, we would be prioritizing that first, and then we will be prioritizing the second item, which will be the feature B. Then we will be prioritizing the third item, which will be the feature D, then feature E, and then feature C. So that's how we can calculate the WGF score for our product backlog, and according to that, we can make sure that okay, these are the items which is should be prioritizing first, and after that, we can prioritize the other stories or the other epics. So yeah, these are all about all the four techniques of the product backlog prioritizations. Moving just in the last, I will just try to conclude some of the things that so prioritization features is an ongoing process, correct, that requires a deep understanding of your product's purpose and your users need. uh, I will say that to prioritize a features into a product is not a single person's job. All the stakeholders, the PO, the BA, the team, everyone should be coming up and making a decision that okay, these are the features which should be adding into a product, at what time, how much complexity is, how much business value it will be bringing up. The Moscow, the Canon, the RICE methods offer distinct and complementary approaches to feature the prioritization, depending on your product, combining the elements. from these frameworks can provide a well-rounded strategy for making the informed decisions. Uh, the last point which I would want to mention is that the product backlog prioritization is always the product owner call, correct? And there should not be that, okay, there should be a particular role where we are calling the product owner. Product owner can be anyone which is more allocated with the customer. They understand the customer needs, and they are having good knowledge of the product. That person can be the product owner by having the customer knowledge that what are the features should be a priority, what all the features the customer is demanding. So that person can be the product owner, but the backlog prioritization is always the product owner call. Yeah. So any questions? I think I have covered all my part. Okay, so I think Pratiksha, I have done. If anyone has not having any question, then we can drop off, and feel free to reach out to me if anyone wants to understand more about the user story or the product backlog prioritization technique, how to do that. There are other prioritization technique as well, which we can use to prioritize our product backlog.